Kate, Emma, and Ginny are all 30 years old, but their lives couldn't be more different. Kate, the golden child who graduated from the country's fanciest university, co-founded a fireworks company with her husband, James. But despite her degrees in business intelligence, she decided to become a full-time stay-at-home mom when she got pregnant with their son, Henry. Of course, Kate doesn't do anything halfway. She starts her day at the crack of dawn with a run and some Pilates before whipping up a Pinterest-worthy breakfast for her husband and toddler. Today, they're moving from their old apartment into a bigger one, which Kate is convinced will bring better vibes and better schools for Henry. She's already arranged the furniture, paying special attention to feng shui, because why not help James's business and their general luck with a little furniture magic? Meanwhile, Emma rolls out of bed in her rented apartment, grabs breakfast from a street vendor, because who's got time to cook, and takes public transport to work. Emma works as a senior sales associate at Milshill, a luxury clothing brand. She's the type of employee who's so hardworking and thoughtful that customers love her, and most of her co-workers do too. Well, most. Then there's Ginny, the baby-faced, child-free, perky wife who lives in a humble apartment with her husband, Pete, and their cat, plus his beloved fish. She works in a boring office job at a property management company, and her personality is as bright and cute as her face. She's the kind of person who's always ready to help out, with a smile on her face. Today, a new co-worker, Zach, joins the office and she kinda notices him. Later, James gets an urgent call from work, and Kate goes with him to the office. She can't help but notice a single tangerine handed to James by a female staff member. Suspicious fruit. Instead of throwing a jealous fit, she heads straight to the supermarket and buys a giant box of tangerines to bring home. At Milshill, a modestly dressed woman enters the store, and no one gives her a second glance except Emma, who treats her like any other customer. Turns out, this woman isn't just window shopping, she's ready to drop serious cash on a custom diamond necklace. Emma's thrilled, knowing this could be her ticket to a promotion. She tells Miss Chen, the mysterious woman, that full payment is required for the piece, and Miss Chen agrees. Emma can barely contain her excitement as she runs to tell the store manager. But before she knows it, Linda, her work nemesis, swoops in with snacks and drinks for Ms. Chen, clearly hoping to steal the sale. The manager shuts Linda down, but then tries to make a move herself, suggesting they exchange numbers. Thankfully, Miss Chen stands firm and insists on dealing only with Emma. Everyone congratulates her except Linda, who manages to steal Miss Chen's phone number from Emma's phone when she isn't looking. That evening, the store realizes a pair of pants is missing. All the staff must stay late to check inventory, but they can't find it. They're told they will need to cover the cost, which is nearly a full month's salary. Exhausted, Emma finally returns home and has a champion dinner from a convenience store. Meanwhile, Kate is enjoying a fancy family dinner in their new apartment, complete with a view of the city skyline. James notices the mountain of tangerines and tells her she's the perfect wife. Meanwhile, Ginny is less than thrilled. She's pretty sure her stinky husband cares more about his stinky fish than his newlywed wife. Kate wants Henry to get into the elite kindergarten at their new building, so today, the whole family is dragged through interviews, both for Henry and his parents. The admission team is impressed by Kate and James, as they're well-educated and dedicated parents. Henry is doing well too, until the teacher asks him the capital of the country. Instead of answering, Henry keeps saying on the arm. When the teacher repeats the question, Henry bites his arm. Nailed it, kid. At home, Kate isn't mad. Instead, she tells Henry, well, you gave it your best shot, but let's not bite people, okay? Ginny, Kate's best friend and Henry's godmother, drops by to check on them. Since Ginny works for the building management, Kate asks her to find the top dog in the building who could help get Henry into the school. Turns out, it's Mrs. Wang, the Pentheus queen. Kate confesses to Ginny that she basically twisted James's arm to move here for Henry's education, so this cannot fail. Meanwhile, Emma gets a call from her mom, who has a wonderful surprise. She's saved all the allowance Emma's been sending and wants Emma to move back home. Oh, and remember that promise to return if she hit 30 with no husband or house? Well, Emma's 30th is looming, and she's still single and renting. After some polite yelling, Emma hangs up, wondering where all her life choices went wrong. At work, Emma's face breaks out in a rash. But she doesn't want to miss her appointment with Miss Chen. Her co-workers practically shove her to the hospital, where she finds out she's allergic to peaches. Weird, since she didn't need any. Looking at her chapstick, Emma realizes someone tampered with it and knows exactly who, Linda. Emma texts Miss Chen to reschedule and returns to confront Linda, throwing water in her face and warning her not to play dirty again. Meanwhile, Ginny brings her cat to her parents' place after it killed 2 of Pete's fish and peed on the couch. While staying there, her mom keeps pushing for grandkids, but Ginny explains that Pete's on the no kids for 5 years plan, but suddenly, she remembers she's late. A pregnancy test confirms the news, and now Ginny's freaking out because how do you tell your husband, who's obsessed with fish, that you're pregnant? Kate, on the other hand, is in full suck-up mode. She heads to Mrs. Wang's penthouse with a cake, hoping to win her favor. Mrs. Wang is rich, obnoxious, and so out of touch that she thinks Monet's Water Lilies is by Van Gogh. After a day of sucking up, Kate still doesn't know if Mrs. Wang will help. At home, she vents to James, feeling the pressure to climb the social ladder. The next day, Emma interviews for a store manager position but is told she needs to bring something unique to the brand. After the meeting, she collapses from pain but insists she's fine. Ginny and Jack, as the lowest-ranked minions in their office, are assigned to deliver packages around the building. Jack pays the delivery guy to do it for him, but Ginny has no money since Pete manages her finances. Unable to contact anyone, she walks up 9 flights of stairs herself. Emma, also delivering clothes to customers, runs into Ginny and lends her some money to hire the delivery guy. Kate seizes the chance to get closer to Mrs. Wang by helping her walk down the stairs in heels when the elevator breaks. She even lets Mrs. Wang wear her slippers while Kate walks in socks. Ginny, seeing how far Kate is going to impress Mrs. Wang, feels bad and wishes she could help more. That night, Emma returns home in pain. Sensing something wrong, her mom calls an ambulance, saving Emma's life. Emma wakes up in the hospital, with the doctor diagnosing her with acute nephritis. Fortunately, it's mild and treatable. She's confused about how she ended up there until her mother calls, practically screaming into the phone about how worried she was and how she had to call an ambulance to save Emma's life. Emma's mom wants to rush to the city to take care of her, but Emma reassures her, even talking harshly to her mom to stop her from coming. Meanwhile, at home, Kate asks James to help her set up a telescope. Mrs. Wang has one, but no clue how to use it, and Kate thinks playing Galileo might win her some brownie points with the rich lady. The next day, Ginny goes with Kate to the doctor to confirm her pregnancy. Upon learning she's truly expecting, Ginny worries about upsetting Pete, but Kate stop her right there, girl. It's your body, your baby, and your life. Stop stressing about what he thinks and start thinking about what you want. Priorities, right? That evening, Pete comes home and immediately starts whining about Ginny's parents still popping in to cook and clean, calling her a baby despite her colossal age. Ginny, already annoyed, ends up eating dinner alone while Pete gathers only his clothes to wash. Classic, when Ginny shows Pete the pregnancy test, Pete asks her not to keep the baby. Ginny, hurt, shoots back with, "Fine. Let's just go to the hospital tomorrow and take care of it then." Pete, flustered, doesn't know what to say, so he awkwardly hands her a gift from his business trip. Ginny, clearly over it, barely glances at the gift. Meanwhile, over at Mrs. Wang's house, Kate's playing tech support with the telescope. Mrs. Wang casually mentions she wants to name some asteroids after her son as a coming-of-age gift. She orders Kate to help her find the way to do it, no matter the cost, and maybe she'll consider helping Henry get into the preschool. Kate, finally over Mrs. Wang's nonsense, politely declines the cosmic shopping spree and drops a bomb. By the way, that water lilies painting you love? It's Monet, not Van Gogh. Money can't buy you class or art knowledge. Mrs. Wang, looking shocked and maybe a little impressed, says Kate reminds her of her son. Turns out, even filthy rich people have problems. Her son once told her he was jealous of a classmate whose award was named after an asteroid and both his parents were scientists. Mrs. Wang, being herself, offered to buy him some stars, only for her son to look at her with disgust. For a moment, Kate feels an unexpected wave of sympathy for Mrs. Wang. The next day, Pete drags Ginny to the hospital to take care of things, but just as they get there, she freaks out. She claims she has a work emergency and flees straight to Kate's for backup. Kate does sugarcoat it. Look, being a mom means your whole life is gonna change. You're not just you anymore, you're mom, and everything revolves around that tiny human. Meanwhile, Emma's forced into a blind date by her mom with some guy named Little John, a so-called managing director. He invites her to dinner but, surprise, it's a lame networking event where he struts around pretending to know people. Spoiler, no one cares. His cheap suit screams wish. Calm, and to top it off, he introduces Emma as his girlfriend and makes her his personal photographer. After surviving the cringe fest, Emma blocks him immediately. Her co-workers call her picky, she calls it having standards. Kate later meets with Mrs. Wang to share the info about naming an asteroid, and they actually bond when Kate admits she kinda gets her now. Guess even billionaires need a break sometimes. Ms. Chen swings by Milshill to complete her jewelry purchase and spills the tea to Emma. Turns out, she's spending that divorce money like a boss. She and her ex built a fortune, but once they got rich, he showed up with a mistress rocking designer labels. So, Miss Chen decided if anyone's gonna wear expensive stuff, it's gonna be her. Emma feels a little bad for taking her money, but still swipes that card. That night, James works late, and Sarah Yep, the tangerine girl, is back at it, this time with homemade food and a full-on pick-me act, complete with crocodile tears about how hard her job is. James tells Kate everything like it's no big deal. But Kate knows. The next day, she shows up at his office with a mountain of tangerines for everyone and hands one to Sarah with a smile that says, "I see you, girl." Then she casually tells Sarah to focus on her work if she wants to get ahead. Pete and Ginny go to lunch with Kate and James. Ginny hopes that seeing cute little Henry will change Pete's mind about having kids, but nope, he's more interested in their fish tank. Ginny feels bummed watching Kate and James share love and responsibilities while her own husband, Pete, remains clueless. On the way home, they argue. Ginny wishes she had a happy, loving family like Kate's while Pete just wants to be Pete. Meanwhile, little John shows up at Millshill with his girlfriend and talks down to Emma, bragging that she played hard to get when she's just a salesperson. Emma gets her revenge by upselling tons of outfits to his girlfriend, leaving little John's wallet crying. Pete's brother, Dave, who drives for Kate and James, hears about Ginny's pregnancy from them and immediately spills the news to their mom, hoping to score some pocket money. Later, Kate and James visit Mrs. Wang to discuss getting Henry into a preschool. The catch? They have to fund a yearly fireworks show. James is irked by the absurdity, but Kate manages to play nice and seal the deal. On Henry's first day, Kate meets Karen, the PTA queen bee. Karen scolds Kate for not bringing homemade cupcakes. Apparently, it's tradition for new students. Kate coolly says she'll bring them by lunchtime, and when Karen finds out Kate lives in the fancy neighborhood, her attitude does a 180. She quickly adds her to the parents group chat, one with the teacher and one without. Drama, Kate returns with flawless cupcakes, impressing Karen. But things take a turn at the school's food festival when a classmate, Tom, has a seizure. Karen uses this as an excuse to rally parents to push Tom out of school, claiming he's a bad influence. Kate and James are disgusted by Karen's discrimination. Although both she and Henry were scared, Kate believes they should help Tom, not shun him. She explains this to Henry, saying Tom's seizures are only dangerous to himself, and discrimination is wrong. Kate eventually stands up to Karen and defends Tom's family, getting support from other parents. Thanks to her, Tom doesn't have to leave school. The next day, Dave informs Pete and Ginny that their mom now knows about Ginny's pregnancy. Things just got more complicated, as Grandma definitely won't take it well if anything happens to the baby. Karen, being her usual self, takes another jab at Kate at school, calling her a low-EQ stay-at-home mom and even threatening to make Henry's life at school hard. Kate ignores her stupid yapping. But then, the principal calls Kate in to ask her to join the PTA, making Karen feel threatened and worried Kate will steal her spotlight. Back at Millshill, a middle-aged man buys a bunch of clothes and then asks Emma out, handing her his loyalty points receipt, thinking she'd be impressed. Emma politely declines both and calls him out for having a wedding band in his pocket. The guy storms off, offended, but Emma couldn't care less and goes right back to work. Kate buys 2 tennis tickets for Ginny and Pete, hoping it'll help Ginny patch things up with her husband. But mid-match, Pete gets a work call and leaves. Classic Pete, Ginny comes home solo and can't get in because, surprise, the door is still jammed. She's told Pete 1,000 times to fix it. She tries calling him, but no answer. With no other option, she sits outside, fuming. When Pete finally shows up, it's late, and Ginny is angry. They argue about his usual lack of attention. Then, she brings up the baby. This time, Pete opens up. His dad abandoned him and Dave when they were kids, and he grew up too fast. He's scared he won't be a good enough father. Meanwhile, James comes home drunk after a meeting with Mr. 1, a big client. Kate calls Dave to get the details and pieces together that James took Sarah with him to the meeting. Ginny's mom now knows about the pregnancy, thanks to Pete's mom. She's thrilled and immediately drags Ginny to a doctor's appointment. The whole family, even Pete, lights up when they see the ultrasound. That night, Ginny and her mom go on a baby shopping spree, while Pete moans about how small their house is for all the stuff. But later, he secretly stays up late to make room for the baby crib. At Miss Hill, Emma's in hot water when a $2,000 loyalty point receipt is found in her account, a big no-no for staff. Emma swears she didn't take it, but the evidence says otherwise. She realizes it's the same receipt the creepy customer tried to give her a few days ago. Emma tracks him down, begs him to come clean, but he laughs, saying she probably picked it up after he left. Desperate, Emma asks her boss for help, but she shuts her down, reminding her she's just a salesgirl and that customers come for the brand, not her. Brutal, then Kate gets the news that James fought with Mr. Wan, their biggest client. James is done with Wan, calling him a cheapskate who disrespects their high-end fireworks shows and pushes for cheap crap. Also, Wan forced James and Sarah to drink till they couldn't stand. James wants to cancel the contract, Kate tries to reason with him, knowing they need Juan, and offers to negotiate. James refuses, but Kate goes anyway. Juan tries to push her around too, ordering her to drink and making gross advances. But Kate snaps, curses him out, and walks out. She comes home, drunk, only to hear from the housekeeper that Henry was taken to Karen's kid's birthday party. It was mentioned in the group chat, but Kate was too busy and drunk to notice. Kate rushes to Karen's house, only to find Henry locked in a room, screaming and crying. Furious, but she remains calm and comforts Henry, then drags Karen and her minion into the same room and gives them a beatdown. When Karen threatens to sue, Kate calmly tells her she has evidence of Karen kidnapping Henry and stealing money from the school. Checkmate, Kate takes her son home. It's the first time in 30 years she's ever thrown hands. Later that night, James comes home after a football game with his friends. Kate doesn't say a word about her insane day. She just tells him that, since they dropped Mr. Juan, they're in for some tough times and may need to sell their brand new house. The next day, Emma's on the verge of being disciplined at the main office when Ginny, who happens to be there on an errand, hears Jack talking about Emma's situation. Luckily, Ginny remembers overhearing a woman at the mall using the loyalty receipt in Emma's name. She steps in just in time to clear Emma's name. They review the mall's CCTV footage and catch the real culprit, a woman who is Linda's friend. Even after getting caught, Linda shows zero remorse, claiming Emma's just lucky and doesn't deserve her success. When the manager asks Emma how she wants to handle it, she replies, "Fire her, just like you were about to do to me." Meanwhile, Pete's start to step up as a dad, paying more attention to Ginny. Emma invites Ginny over for dinner to thank her, and Ginny insists on repaying the 200 yuan she owes. During dinner, they bond over the fact that they're both about to turn 30 and become friends. Dave tells Kate how Sarah had been stirring the pot and egging James on during his drunken night with Juan. Realizing Sarah's been trouble all along, Kate fires her without hesitation. Determined to save their company, Kate jumps back into the business. She attends a gathering of ultra-rich women with Mrs. Wang, but quickly feels out of place when she sees everyone flaunting their Birkin bags. One woman's family even owns several amusement parks. And Kate thinks befriend her can bring huge business deal to their firework company. By the end of the event, they take a group photo, but when it's posted online, Kate's been cropped out. Ouch, still, Kate's not one to give up. She decides the first step to breaking into this elite circle is to get her own Birkin bag. Later, she hears that Karen's family is leaving the school and the PTA head spot is open. Perfect timing. Kate reaches out to Emma, through Ginny, for help securing the Birkin. Luckily, Emma has a friend at Hermes, and though it's a challenge, she manages to help Kate get the bag. Meanwhile, Ginny and Pete hit another bump. Ginny gets offered a promotion but turns it down, worried that the extra workload will affect her pregnancy. Pete, stressed about possibly losing his own job, snaps at Ginny for refusing the promotion, and they're not the only ones feeling the financial strain. Emma's landlord hikes her rent, blaming inflation, while Kate's struggling to justify spending over $40,000 on a Birkin bag, especially since their house is already mortgaged to save the company. Kate convinces James that getting the Birkin bag is just the first step to joining the elite circle of ultra-rich women, which could benefit their business, especially since one of the women, Mrs. Su in the group, owns 3 amusement parks. James agrees and scrambles to borrow enough money for Kate to buy the bag. Emma finally brings the bag to Kate, who explains how important it is for their family, calling it their lifeline. With the Birkin in hand, Kate successfully integrates into the wealthy women's group. Kate, Emma, and Ginny start hanging out more. Emma's company rewards her with a European cruise for her outstanding work. She asks Kate for advice, and Kate suggests upgrading to a suite, saying the experience is worlds apart. Emma is inspired, while Ginny feels a little down since her pregnancy prevents her from traveling. Emma prepares for her trip, believing it'll be a once-in-a-lifetime experience. While shopping for clothes, she notices that, as she gets older, she cares more about quality than brand names or trends. Kate also lends her some of her best dresses for the trip. Soon after, Ginny and Pete receive terrible news. Ginny has a miscarriage. She's devastated and in disbelief. She feels even worse when she notices Pete's indifferent reaction. She starts wondering if he's secretly relieved they won't have to worry about having kids anymore. Meanwhile, Kate realizes Mrs. Wang has been treating her like a helper, making her bake for the other women while they gossip. After the guests leave, Kate gives Mrs. Wang a reality check. "You're wasting my talent on pastries. I can help you earn real respect from these women." Mrs. Wang stays quiet, But she knows Kate is serious. Emma's cruise day finally arrives, and she's all smiles until she sees her room. It's small and far from luxurious. Even the ship's restaurants are divided between economy and luxury class. Emma heads to the fancy restaurant and asks for a window seat, but the waiter tells her it's reserved for people who booked in advance. That evening, Kate visits Ginny to comfort her after hearing the news from Pete. Later that night, Emma puts on a beautiful dress that Kate lent her and heads to the first-class bar for a drink. The whiskey she orders is way too strong, and she almost chokes on it. A man at the bar notices and sits next to her, joking that Scottish whiskey might be a bit much for her and orders her a Japanese one instead. He shares an odd story about an island in Greece, Paros, where they wash human bones with Scottish whiskey during a ceremony after a person has been buried for 3 years. Emma laughs, thinking he'd tell that story no matter what drink she ordered, but it does make her smile. They chat by the railing, and Emma is clearly enjoying his company. Turns out, he noticed her earlier, eating alone at the restaurant. His name is Kevin. He offers to upgrade her room to a suite, but Emma refuses and decides to upgrade it herself. Meanwhile, Kate and James's company is struggling, and they have to let go of 2 longtime employees. A friend hears about their situation and lends them some money. James is upset, but Kate reassures him that she'll secure the big order from Mrs. Sue's family. When Kate learns that the rich moms are sending their kids to horseback riding lessons, she sells a few of her designer items to afford lessons for Henry, hoping to get closer to Mrs. Sue. Ginny and Pete go for tests to find out what caused the miscarriage. Ginny's mom comes to stay with them for a while to take care of her, bringing along Ginny's cat to cheer her up. Pete feels uncomfortable with her mom around, but Ginny isn't backing down this time. Emma wakes up in her suite feeling refreshed, despite the nearly $3,000 extra cost. She decides to deal with it later. Meanwhile, Kate meets Mrs. Sue at the horse riding school. Thanks to Mrs. Wong, Kate learns that Mrs. Sue is the second wife of her wealthy husband. Despite the wealth, Mrs. Sue struggles because her stepson doesn't like her, and she hasn't been able to have a child yet. One day, Kate notices she wears the same limited bracelet Kate has recently sold. At the riding school, she also witnesses Mrs. Sue being snubbed by her stepson, even though she clearly cares about him. When Henry tells James that Kate made him take riding lessons, James is upset. Kate explains that one of the women in the group has both of her kids going to Oxford because she invested in their education early on. Kate insists that they need to focus more on Henry's future and make more money to provide the best for him. James doesn't seem thrilled. That night, Kevin invites Emma out again and takes her to the luxury restaurant. He doesn't need a reservation but slips the waiter some money to secure a window seat. Kevin seems to be a VIP because even the chef comes out to greet him. Emma is impressed. During dinner, Kevin opens up. He's been financially independent for a while, even though he's only 37. Now, he spends his time traveling the world and seeking thrilling experiences. He suggests taking Emma on his next adventure. To thank him, Emma cooks him a simple tomato and egg dish, and Kevin gifts her a bracelet he noticed she liked earlier. Meanwhile, things aren't going well for Pete at the TV station. He's worried about losing his job and has to work overtime, breaking his promise to stay home with Ginny. She's furious, feeling that Pete doesn't care about her or the baby they lost. Ginny starts to regret marrying Pete, while her mom defends him, saying he's talented and ambitious. She insists that Pete is just stressed about work and tells Ginny that having a husband is important for a woman's life. This only makes Ginny angrier. Later that afternoon, Pete comes home to find his fish tank unplugged. Turns out, Ginny's mom tried to unplug it for 2 hours to save electricity but forgot to plug it back in, and a few fish died. Pete is livid. Now even Ginny's mom is upset with him, telling him it's just fish, while he didn't even show that much emotion when he and Ginny lost their baby. To make matters worse, Ginny's mom made fish for dinner, not the ones from the tank, and Pete can't handle it anymore, so he storms out. Ginny runs after Pete as he goes outside to bury the fish. She confronts him, furious that he seems to care more about his fish than her. Pete snaps back, saying he'd rather work all day than stay home because Ginny's mom constantly nags him. Her mom overhears and is deeply hurt, deciding to leave that night. Feeling lost, Ginny goes to Kate's for comfort. Kate takes care of her, especially since Ginny has caught a cold. Feeling neglected by Pete, Ginny is even more emotional, but Kate gently reassures her and tells her to stay the night. Meanwhile, Emma and Kevin attend the captain's dinner on the cruise, and there's a lottery with the prize being a wish come true. Kevin wins, and his wish is for Emma to sing on stage. Although her singing is pretty bad, causing the audience to laugh, Kevin is clearly smitten. Afterward, Emma jokes that Kevin must have bribed the captain to win the raffle, but Kevin insists it was pure luck and sincerity. He confesses his feelings for her and tries to make a move, but Emma, feeling overwhelmed, uses the excuse of being tired and heads back to her room. The next morning, Pete shows up at Kate's house to pick up Ginny. Kate has a heart-to-heart with him, subtly reminding him to be more understanding and supportive of Ginny, especially since she's heartbroken over losing their baby and truly wants to be a mother. Pete takes Ginny out for breakfast and apologizes for being insensitive. But Ginny tells him their issues run deeper. She admits that losing the baby made her realize how little they truly understand each other. She feels their love has faded compared to when they first fell for each other, but Pete disagrees, thinking she's overanalyzing. At the horse riding school, Mrs. Sue's stepson intentionally pushes his horse into her, causing her to fall. Kate quickly tends to her and strikes up a conversation. Touched by Kate's words, Mrs. Sue opens up about her struggles. Kate advises her to approach her stepson as a friend first, instead of trying to force a motherly bond too soon. On the cruises last night, Kevin stops by Emma's room and invites her to Iceland to see the northern lights with him. Emma declines, explaining that they come from two different worlds. Once the trip ends, she'll return to her simple life and daily grind. Kevin asks if they can at least exchange contact info, but Emma says no and tell him goodbye. When Emma returns home, she's shocked to find her landlord with real estate agents. The landlord plans to sell the house Emma's been renting to help fund her daughter's wedding. Still reeling from the news, Emma gets a call from Kate, who tells her that Ginny has had a miscarriage. Without hesitation, Emma drops everything to join Kate and visit Ginny. Kate and Emma team up to comfort Ginny, proposing a fun day out to lift her spirits. However, Ginny refuses, saying she's not in the mood. Kate comes up with another idea. They visit the university Kate and Ginny attended and sneak into a class, pretending to be students again. Watching the students, they reminisce about their younger selves from 10 years ago. Ginny takes the opportunity to vent about her husband, and the three laugh so loudly that they get kicked out of the classroom by the professor. After their fun day together, reality sets back in. When Kate gets home, she finds out that her father had stopped by to visit Henry while she was out. Emma now faces the challenge of finding a new place to live, while Ginny asks Pete to get his fertility checked, as she doesn't want to go through the heartbreak of losing another child without understanding the cause. Ginny even sends Pete's test results to her mother, which angers Pete, as he feels his privacy has been violated. Luckily, Pete's fertility results are perfectly fine, easing some of the tension between them. That night, Pete tells Ginny that maybe it's not their relationship that's gotten worse, but that they've just grown older, making life seem duller compared to when they were young. Ginny helps Emma pack up her things. Emma feels a bit sad about leaving the old place, especially since it was closer to work and had a nice city view. The new place is over an hour away by subway, but Emma is determined to save money and plans to use those savings to travel once a year. That night, Kate has a nightmare about her dad having a stroke. Panicked, she calls him to check in, but he's asleep and grumpily hangs up. The next morning, Kate visits her dad and tells him that living alone like this makes her worry. She gives him 3 options: let her install a nanny cam, hire a helper, or come live with her and James. He refuses all 3. However, Kate notices a brochure for a nursing home on his table, which upsets her. Her dad insists he doesn't want to become a burden on her. Kate and James take her dad to visit the nursing home, but Kate is dissatisfied with the quality and opposes the idea. They visit a higher-end retirement home recommended by James, but the high cost makes her dad uncomfortable with the idea of them paying for it. Henry, their son, also expresses concern for his grandfather, which softens her dad's resolve. After a mishap at work, Pete isn't being valued at the TV station. So he decides to take time off to be with Ginny. Ironically, Ginny now wants to return to work. Mrs. Sue happily tells Kate that thanks to her advice, her relationship with her stepson has improved, even though the boy still acts mean toward her. Mrs. Sue also mentioned Kate's company to her husband, and he's agreed to meet them at the golf course. James and Kate meet Mr. Sue, who casually tells James to send over the paperwork, and the deal will be sealed. James is surprised at how easy it all is. He's impressed with how Kate secured such a big business deal and asks her to return to the company full-time to help him. However, Kate prefers to stay involved with the rich housewives circle, believing the connections will bring even more opportunities. James isn't thrilled, thinking those women are snobby and might have a bad influence on Kate. But she insists it's the only way to elevate their lifestyle. The next day at Miss Hill, Kevin shows up unexpectedly and surprises Emma. He tells her he's only in Shanghai for a few days to see her. He admits that during his trip to Iceland, he couldn't stop thinking about her, so he asked the travel agency for her information and found out where she works. Before leaving, he slips his hotel keycard into her pocket. Emma is thrilled and asks her manager for the afternoon off. She rushes to Kevin's hotel, and just as she's about to use the keycard, he opens the door, gazing at her with longing. They hug and kiss passionately.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe and like for more videos like this.
After their intimate moment, Emma tries to check Kevin's hand for signs of a wedding ring mark. Kevin notices and reassures her that he's single and has never been married. Emma feels relieved but remembers Kevin is a customer at Miss Hill. She awkwardly explains she's never dated a customer before, but Kevin laughs, reminding her they didn't meet through Miss Hill. He then asks why she turned him down on the cruise. Emma explains that she doesn't jump into things lightly and needed time to think, but this time, she came to him because he made an effort to come into her real life, not just as a vacation fling. Meanwhile, Kate and James take Kate's dad to the nursing home they decided on. As Kate helps him settle in, she remembers how, after her mom passed away, she chose to go to boarding school because she felt awkward sharing her teenage problems with her dad. Now, she gets why her dad prefers living on his own rather than moving in with her and James. James overhears, feeling even more love for Kate. Both are excited about the big changes happening with their business with the deal for Mr. Sue's amusement park almost finalized. James is so grateful to Kate that he offers to buy her anything she wants. But Kate has bigger plans. She's thinking about getting back her life insurance money to fund something she's been planning. Ginny, on the other hand, gets assigned to work with Jack on a project that involves reaching out to various stores. Jack is really good at his job, especially when it comes to use his charm to work with the female managers. This makes Ginny feel a bit jealous because she thought Jack was only close with her, but turns out, he's friendly with everyone. Later, Emma tells Ginny and Kate about her undefined relationship with Kevin. They're happy but warn her to be cautious. Emma asks Kate to help check Kevin's background, and Kate asks her to take a picture of his passport in order to do so. Kate later shares her big idea with the girls, opening a tea shop for wealthy women to gather and gossip, helping her stay connected and build business relationships. Both Emma and Ginny are excited about this idea and admire her ambition. That night, Emma goes on another date with Kevin. While he talks endlessly about his past adventure, she wishes he'd open up more about himself. Finally, after seeing Emma zone out, Kevin shares a bit about his life. He's an American-born Chinese and currently living in Hong Kong. He also mentions that he's flying back to Hong Kong the next day but invites Emma to join him on a trip to Vanuatu for snorkeling and fishing. Emma, excited, says yes. Later, Kate tells Emma that her background check came back clear. Kevin is single. Meanwhile, James is on a juice-only dinner plan for his fatty liver. To support him, Kate skips dinner too. However, James gets hungry later and secretly asks their son Henry for snacks, which Henry cleverly hid in his blanket. At work, Jack starts showing signs of romantic interest in Ginny, something even Emma notices when she visits Ginny. One night, they go out with their department for dinner, and suddenly, Ginny is hit with a severe stomachache. Jack immediately takes her to the hospital, where they find out she has acute gastritis. Ginny calls Pete, asking him to pick her up from the hospital. However, Pete tells her he's busy and can't make it. Jack offers to drive her home, but Ginny declines and gets a cab instead. That night, Ginny struggles to fall asleep again, and Pete's loud snoring clearly doesn't help. The next day, James plays football with his friends, and one compliments Kate's abilities. James, however, expresses concern that her growing ambition is influenced by her wealthy women's circle. He's also frustrated that the recent business deal didn't require his fireworks expertise, making him feel undervalued. Just then, a group of students shows up and starts arguing with James' group over the field. One of the students provokes James, leading to a big fight. Later, Kate and Dave arrive at the police station to deal with the situation. Dave quickly negotiates with the students, and things calm down, but Kate is mad because James's face is bruised and he's supposed to go to Beijing the next day for the project with Mr. Su. James, irritated, sarcastically says his looks don't matter as long as Kate keeps cozying up to Mrs. Su. He accuses her of treating him like a child and always tell him what to do and not giving him any freedom. Kate can't take his unreasonable behavior anymore. She knows his complaints are just veiled criticism of her efforts to expand their connections with wealthy women. It's not about the vanity, it's about the nature of their business and the need for strong relationships to keep the company running smoothly. Despite Kevin's confidence, he fumbles during the dive and loses his oxygen mask. Luckily, Emma quickly helps him put it back. Other tourists are impressed and they have a fun conversation, but then one mentions the tickets had to be booked a year in advance. Emma realizes Kevin planned this trip with someone else. When she confronts him, he admits he bought the tickets with his ex, but didn't tell Emma because he didn't want to upset her. Emma feels like he's just a smooth talker that treats everyone the same and decides to go home. Ginny is very excited about her 30th birthday. Pete asks how she wants to celebrate, and she says she just wants to spend it with him. After dinner, Ginny mentions she lost her wedding ring, likely at her ultrasound. Pete reassures her, saying they can get new ones if they can't find it, making her happy. James arrives in Beijing for the Mr. Su project and meets Anna, who shows him around the amusement park. They quickly bond over their love for fireworks. Emma arrives at the Shanghai airport and is surprised to see Kevin followed her back. Meanwhile, Dave is arrested for selling counterfeit goods. Ginny wants to help him, but Pete thinks Dave should face the consequences. Ginny asks Kate for help, which angers Pete. He accuses Ginny of relying too much on others, and Ginny fires back, accusing Pete of being selfish to everyone including her. James and Anna grow closer, and James even brings her band-aids for her heels after she complains about her high heels. While she brings him lunch and sings for him, and he starts falling for her, soon, it's Ginny's 30th birthday. She wakes up early, hoping for Pete to wish her a happy birthday. But he just wants to sleep. But Ginny doesn't lose the spirit. She heads to a beauty salon for a makeover before work. Jack brings a cake, and they celebrate at the office. Right in the middle of the celebration, Ginny gets a call from Dave's lawyer, and she runs to the police station. Meanwhile, Pete is struggling to book a fancy restaurant for Ginny's birthday dinner and has to bribe a coworker to use his connection. Later, Pete's boss yells at him, accusing him of trying to switch jobs after hearing he had dinner with a rival TV boss. Pete denies it, but his boss keeps accusing him of leaking information. During this, Ginny tries calling him several times, but Pete is too stressed to answer. That night, it rains heavily. Someone bumps into Ginny on the street, breaking her phone. Pete arrives at her office to pick her up, but she's already left, so he heads home. Ginny walks home in the rain, upset and soaked. When she arrives, she's even angrier to find Pete already at home and the door still stuck like always. She finally snaps and lets out all her frustrations. They realize the door has been left open, and their cat, Pikachu, has run away. They search but can't find him. Ginny, at her breaking point, accuses Pete of not caring about her or anything else. She demands to know why he married her. Pete casually replies that he thought life would be easier with her because she's nice. Shocked at how shallow his answer is, Ginny tells him he's always available for others but never for her. She reminds him how she's felt sick for a while, but he dismisses it, saying she's overreacting and should see a doctor. Furious, Ginny throws some of Pete's fish out of the tank. A flashback shows Pete proposing to her by hiding the ring in the fish tank. Now, Ginny thinks losing her wedding ring was a sign. She tells Pete she wants a divorce and can't live like this anymore. To her surprise, Pete agrees quickly, saying they'll meet at City Hall tomorrow at 8 a.m. Shocked, Ginny storms out of the house, crying. She spends her birthday night alone in a hotel, wishing that things will get better from now on. The next morning, Pete and Ginny go to City Hall to finalize their divorce. Ginny arrives 3 hours late, wearing a beautiful white outfit with full makeup. She says Pete made her wait countless times, so this is nothing in comparison. The divorce process goes smoothly. When asked about splitting their assets, Ginny says she doesn't want the house or car since Pete paid the down payment and she doesn't drive. But Pete insists on splitting everything equally because Ginny has been paying the mortgage every month. As they leave City Hall, they notice a parking ticket on their car. They recalls how 3 years ago, they came here to register their marriage and thought it would be the last time they'd ever need to be there. At home,
Pete brings up selling the house once they get the official paperwork, planning to split it equally. Ginny is surprised, not expecting Pete to give her a share. He explains it's compensation for their lost baby and the surgery Ginny had to endure. Ginny tells Pete she'll come back soon to pack her things and gets out. Emma and Kate have already waited for her outside, for a girls' trip to a hot spring. Ginny hasn't told them yet about the unexpected gift she received on her birthday, a divorce. Meanwhile, Ginny's mom visits Pete to drop off some food. Pete doesn't mention the divorce and acts as if everything is fine. Ginny's mom asks why she hasn't been able to reach Ginny since the night before. And Pete explains that Ginny broke her phone, assuring her that he'll buy her a new one soon. Ginny's mom then suggests that, as a birthday gift, they should put Ginny's name on the house paperwork, and Pete agrees. At the hot spring, Kate and Emma ask Ginny about her birthday night, but she gives a vague answer. They shift the conversation to their own upcoming birthdays. Kate says she wants more stability. The other two are surprised. They ask how much more stable she could want, given how perfect her life seems. Kate confesses that her fancy house is mortgaged, her company runs on bank loans, and the firework business carries a lot of risks. Meanwhile, Emma is torn. She wants to stay in Shanghai and live her life freely, but she also considers moving to Hong Kong to be closer to Kevin. Kate advises Emma to understand Kevin better before making any big decisions, while Emma thinks it's worth trying, so she won't regret it later. As they chat, Kate and Emma laugh at how mature Ginny sounds, different from her usual self. That's when Ginny drops the bombshell: she got divorced that morning. Both are shocked at first but then encourage her, praising her for prioritizing her own happiness. That night, they celebrate the news by drinking and dancing in their hotel room. Ginny feels incredibly refreshed and free. The next morning, Kate wakes up to shocking news. James's close friend, who also owns a fireworks company, has been jailed after a factory accident killed 2 employees. Kate and James rush to their friend's house, only to find his devastated wife preparing to flee to Australia with their children to avoid getting involved. Before leaving, the wife hands them a bank card, asking them to look after her father-in-law when he returns from his holiday. Both Kate and James are deeply shaken by the news of their friend's arrest. They realize that they too could face a similar fate with their fireworks business at any moment. James finally understands why Kate has been so eager to expand her connections with the Elite Wives Group. It's part of her long-term plan to secure their future. Meanwhile, Ginny arrives at work to find a new phone on her desk. Confused about who sent it, a colleague informs her that she's received packages. Since her divorce and splitting the savings, Ginny has spent a lot of money shopping online, enjoying her newfound freedom. Her cheerful mood surprises Jack, who senses something unusual about her. At the same time, Pete goes to pick up Dave from the detention center. Dave asks where Ginny is and reveals that she was the one who paid for his bail and even went to the police station on her birthday. Pete, feeling guilty, doesn't tell Dave that he and Ginny are now divorced. Realizing this explains why she wasn't at work and why he couldn't pick her up as planned. Ginny wants to tell her mother the truth about the divorce, but when she arrives, she finds her mom playing mahjong with her old friends. Everyone praises Ginny for marrying such a good husband like Pete, and her mother proudly brags about him. Feeling pressured, Ginny holds back and doesn't share the news of her divorce. Meanwhile, Emma continues her long-distance relationship with Kevin. He visits her new place and is surprised to learn she has to use a local carpool service to get to work. Concerned, Kevin offers to rent her a new apartment closer to the city center, but Emma politely declines. Wanting to maintain her independence, Emma and Ginny talk about Kevin. While Kevin cares for Emma, he avoids labeling their relationship. Emma respects this, but Ginny thinks it's unfair and believes Emma deserves more commitment. After the accident at James's friend's factory, Kate tightens safety measures at their fireworks plant to avoid similar risks. Ginny stays at her parents' house for a few days, but when her mom becomes suspicious, she looks for a new place. That evening, she runs into Jack, who tells her about a cabin cinema, where she ends up spending the night. The next day, Jack notices Ginny wearing the same clothes and grows suspicious. Kate takes James hiking to a tea hill to watch the clouds. She shares her wish for him to one day close the fireworks business and pursue his dream of becoming an artist. She hopes for a peaceful life once they've saved enough to pay off their debts. Touched, James promises to focus on safety and cancel any high-risk projects. Kate opens her tea shop and hosts quirky workshops for the Elite Wives Group, like analyzing different bottled waters, which the ladies surprisingly enjoy. Emma becomes frustrated as Kevin tries to make up for his absence with gifts, which feels impersonal to her. At the same time, Ginny is having fun spoiling herself with her newly split savings. but she accidentally charges one of her purchases to Pete's credit card. When Pete points it out, Ginny assures him she'll pay him back. When he comments on her spending habits, she proudly tells him how freeing it is to be divorced, as now she can do whatever she wants without holding back. Emma accompanies Kevin to a bar lounge owned by the girlfriend of one of Kevin's friends. While hanging out with her, Emma realizes that the woman is actually the mistress of Kevin's married friend. Troubled by the situation, Emma questions the morality of it, but the woman shrugs it off, saying she's happy and wishes Emma good luck with Kevin. At work, Ginny receives an urgent call from her mother. Her father has had a heart attack. Jack offers to take her to the hospital on his motorbike. Fortunately, Ginny's father quickly stabilizes, but Pete also arrives at the hospital after being called by Ginny's mother. Given her father's condition, Ginny and Pete decide to keep their divorce a secret for the time being. Meanwhile, Kevin gifts Emma a car to make her commute easier. While Emma is grateful, she sees this as the perfect opportunity to ask Kevin to define their relationship. Instead of giving a clear answer, Kevin dodges the question and gaslights her, telling her to just accept the gift. Ginny asks Emma for advice on finding a long-term rental, as staying in hotels isn't sustainable. Despite her efforts, she struggles to find a place that feels right. Kate suggests that Ginny move back home temporarily, and though hesitant at first, Ginny agrees. However, she creates a detailed set of rules and boundaries for her and Pete to follow while living under the same roof. Basically for her and Pete to avoid contact and stay out of each other's business. Kate is busy organizing workshops for the elite wives, and James gets upset with her for not packing his suitcase for a business trip, even though he's just sitting around doing nothing. Anna texts James, teasing that she has a surprise for him when he arrives in Beijing the next day. Smiling at the message, James looks forward to seeing her. While Kate juggles managing her tea shop, she also has to pick up their friend's father from the airport and help take care of him. Kate doesn't tell the old man right away about his son's situation, and he keeps boasting about himself and his family. She takes him to the nursing home where her own father stays, but the old man becomes angry and threatens to leave. At this point, Kate's father steps in and reveals the truth about the man's son, causing the old man to faint from shock. Meanwhile, James and Anna are basically on a casual date, eating ice cream and chatting without a care in the world. The bearded old man wakes up from his fainting spell but starts confusing Kate's father for his own son, acting disoriented. Seeing Kate overwhelmed with all the responsibilities, her father tells her to go home and leave the old man to him. Meanwhile, Ginny reveals her divorce to her boss and asks for a promotion, promising to be fully focused on work now. Her boss agrees to consider it. As Ginny leaves the office, she sees Jack standing outside the door and realizes he overheard everything. She asks him to keep her divorce a secret. Emma, enjoying her new car, faces a challenge with expensive parking near Miss Hill. Despite Ginny recommending a cheaper parking spot, Emma has to walk quite a distance to work. On top of this, Emma's manager resigns after being diagnosed with cancer, leaving her saddened and reflecting on how unpredictable life can be. Kate's father soon figures out that the old man was pretending to be confused in order to catch everyone off guard and escape at night. He catches him in the act and advises the man to stay strong and support his son and family instead of running away. The next day, Kate visits and is surprised to see the old man back to normal. At work, Ginny notices her co-workers being unusually nice to her. She soon realizes they all know about her divorce and gets upset, assuming Jack leaked the news. Jack doesn't deny it but tells her there's nothing wrong with being divorced, and she shouldn't feel ashamed. Kate's reputation in the wealthy wives group grows, which positively impacts the fireworks business. However, James remains skeptical of Kate's success, all while enjoying his time with Anna, the pick-me girl who flirts subtly with him. While Kate controls James's diet, Anna encourages him to indulge, saying, "You only live once." At work, the manager position opens up, and Emma is assigned the responsibility of store manager. She's thrilled and sees this as her big chance to prove herself. Meanwhile, Ginny visits a modern marketing company with Jack and is impressed by how functional and creative the workspace is. While playing a game in the gaming area, Jack drops his contact lens, and Ginny accidentally breaks it. Now unable to see or drive, Jack doesn't want to leave his motorbike behind due to the high parking fees, so Ginny helps him walk home with his motorbike. Kate sees a promising opportunity when Mrs. Lee, a member of the elite wives group, talks about her high-quality certified organic tea plantation. Kate expresses interest in buying the tea factory, but Mrs. Lee demands an upfront payment of nearly $500,000. Instead of backing down, Kate proposes a deal. She'll pay in 2 installments, with Mrs. Lee receiving 20% of the profits as interest. In return, Kate agrees to host Mrs. Lee's upcoming charity event at her tea shop. Emma feels highly motivated about her new responsibilities at work, but soon after, the store introduces a young woman named Daisy to fill the manager position. Daisy, who studied in the US and has experience working at the company's headquarters, quickly becomes highly regarded. At work, Ginny discovers that it was actually her boss who leaked news of her divorce, not Jack. Realizing her mistake, she apologizes to Jack. Both Daisy and Emma are assigned to visit a VVIP client's home, who turns out to be Mrs. Wang. Kate is also there. Emma and Daisy each present different outfits to Mrs. Wang, subtly competing with each other. Despite Kate's kind words in support of Emma, Mrs. Wang prefers Daisy's outfit, as it's the only piece to Shanghai. Emma realizes Daisy is highly competitive when she exchanges contact information with Mrs. Wang, even though Mrs. Wang already has a sales associate, their boss. This makes Emma uncomfortable. Kate is juggling multiple responsibilities, running her tea shop, working, and taking care of Henry, while James becomes more emotionally attached to Anna, who boosts his ego and encourages his carefree side. James is upset when he hears that Kate decided to buy Mrs. Lee's tea factory without consulting him. He's also unhappy with Kate's plan to hire a childcare helper so she can focus on work. Kate feels frustrated, thinking she always supports everyone, but when she needs support, no one helps her. She doesn't see anything wrong with paying a professional to do a job, but James disagrees. Feeling annoyed with Kate, James enjoys texting Anna even more, sneaking away to read her playful messages. Jack starts inviting Ginny out more often, and she begins to open up to him. She's having fun and enjoying life again. One night, Pete sees Jack bringing a drunk Ginny home, making him jealous. He questions her, but Ginny, still drunk, just jumps on the couch. The next morning, Ginny wakes up angry after realizing Pete had changed her clothes while she was drunk. Kate wants to pay for the tea factory right away, so she asks the fireworks company's finance manager to advance her the money. He refuses, saying he needs James's approval. Knowing James won't agree, Kate decides to rent out her tea shop to get enough money for the first payment herself. Kate successfully buys the tea factory from Mrs. Lee and gets super excited about it. She's so thrilled that she can't sleep and wakes James up in the middle of the night, telling him that the tea factory will guarantee their success soon, and he can finally resign. James, thinking she's being delusional, just goes back to sleep. Meanwhile, Emma finally tells Kevin that she wants a clear definition of their relationship. Kevin once again gaslights her, saying that labels aren't important. Frustrated, Emma vents about how unstable her life feels, especially with her new boss, Daisy, who's constantly breathing down her neck at work. Upset, Emma stops her car in the parking lot far from Miss Hill and leaves Kevin, who's confused. Behind, at work, Daisy scolds Emma for being late. Since Daisy is new, she's trying to micromanage everyone, creating a tense atmosphere in the store. To Emma's surprise, Kevin shows up at Miss Hill and starts shopping, buying a lot of things, including an expensive necklace. In front of everyone, he gifts the stuffs to Emma and introduces himself as her boyfriend. Then, he asks Daisy to let him talk to Emma for 10 minutes. Kevin takes Emma to the nearby parking lot and tells her he's already paid for a parking spot there for a year, so she won't have to walk a long way to work anymore. Emma is touched by his gesture and feels happy. But right after, Kevin drops another bomb, telling her he doesn't believe in marriage and is against the idea of getting married. Emma feels torn, as her family pressures her to get married, and now she's back to square one with her relationship. Meanwhile, Pete tries to win Ginny over by cooking her favorite dishes. Ginny finds it ridiculous because, during their marriage, he never cooked, and now that they're divorced, he's trying to impress her with food. At work, Ginny is given a tough task, collecting overdue rent from a stubborn restaurant owner renting a kiosk in the building managed by her company. She meets the man, but he's struggling financially and asks for a rent reduction. Ginny tries to reason with him, but he's desperate and kicks both her and Jack out. Worried that the man might do something drastic, Ginny feels anxious when she gets home. Pete, understanding the situation, offers to help her by drafting a letter to reassure the man. Meanwhile, Kate interviews a potential childcare helper. She's pleased with the candidate's profile, but James and Henry are not. James guilt-trips Kate, accusing her of abandoning their child and insisting she should continue to take full responsibility for Henry's care. Kate feels this is sexist, as James faces no such pressure to care for Henry while being free to do as he pleases. They argue, and Henry, witnessing the fight, becomes scared his parents might split up. Kate feels guilty and heavy-hearted seeing her little son so worried. The next day, Ginny and Emma visit Kate during their lunch break to discuss Emma's situation with Kevin. While Ginny and Emma are feeling down, Kate bluntly points out that at least Kevin is being honest, and Emma still benefits from his financial support. Emma takes offense at Kate's comment and storms out. Ginny follows, and they both agree Kate has been acting a bit ruthless lately. After some reflection, Emma realizes Kate wasn't wrong and that she might have been defensive. Even though Kevin doesn't want to marry, Emma loves him too much to let go. Ginny, having been married and divorced, reassures Emma that marriage doesn't define love, and she should follow her heart. That night, Emma calls her mom and tells her she has a boyfriend. Her mom is happy and even talking about the marriage, but Emma sighs, knowing deep down that marriage isn't in Kevin's plans. Later that evening, Dave visits Ginny and Pete's house. His sly demeanor makes them nervous, suspecting that he might already know about their divorce. Dave asks Pete for some pocket money, and unlike usual, Pete sends the money immediately. Pete and Ginny then realize they'll need to be careful around him because if he tells Pete's mother, Ginny's parents will surely find out soon after. James apologizes to Kate for hurting her, and when Anna texts him again, he responds by asking her to stop bothering him. Meanwhile, thanks to Pete's letter, the situation with the kiosk owner seems to be improving. Much to Ginny's relief, Jack is becoming more obvious about his feelings for Ginny, showing extra care, which makes her feel awkward. Kate and James take her dad to visit her mother's grave on Kate's birthday. She recalls how her mother was kind and deeply loved by her father. Sadly, her mother was diagnosed with cancer when Kate was a teen. In her final days, Kate's mom asked to stop treatment and return home, passing away just before Kate's 14th birthday. Back then, Kate resented her dad for it, but now, as a mother, she understands their choice. James comforts Kate and takes her to the birthday party he planned for her. Emma and Kevin shop for a gift for Kate, and Kevin asks to join Emma at the party. Though Emma tries to play it cool, she's happy to introduce Kevin to her friends officially. Ginny also meets Jack for work and asks him for a lift to Kate's party. At the event, James talks with Kevin about their relationships and recalls how he and Kate met during the Olympics. Kate was a volunteer, and James was a fireworks programmer. They bumped into each other, and for James, it was love at first sight, leading him to ask her out. Kevin praises James for being lucky to have a wife like Kate. In response, James says Emma is also a great woman, hinting that Kevin should wife her up quickly. Meanwhile, Jack and Ginny arrive at the location, but Jack wants to attend too, so he uses Ginny's phone to call Kate, who invites him in. Later, James and Henry perform a sweet piano piece for Kate, which touches her deeply. She reflects on how she's spent the past 10 years focusing on her family and put her career aside. After the performance, James gives a heartfelt speech about his love for Kate and how grateful he is for her. The fireworks show he planned for her also starts. He then proposes to her again, with a big diamond ring. The beautiful moment moves everyone at the party. During dinner, Emma asks Jack about his intentions toward Ginny, warning him not to mess with her emotions. Jack assures Emma that he's serious about Ginny. James and Kate watch the firework together and she shares that her only wish is for their family's happiness. James holds Kate close, but then a message from Anna pops up on his phone. The day of the firework festival arrives, the family heads to Beijing, where James is overseeing the setup for the fireworks show, and Kate and Henry are there to enjoy the trip. While Kate takes Henry out for a day of fun, Anna approaches James again at work. Anna is pleased by his small acts of care, like not letting her carry heavy items and dusting off her seat, which makes her feel special. That night, Anna is supposed to take James back to the hotel, but instead, she brings him to a football field. Kate usually thinks James playing football is childish, but Anna encourages him to play. He enjoys himself, loses track of time, and returns to the hotel late. By the time he arrives, Kate and Henry are already asleep. Kate has even prepared his toothbrush with toothpaste on it and placed Henry's drawing on the table. Seeing this, James feels guilty for not spending time with them. The next day, the fireworks show James' plans is a huge success. In the middle of the display, fireworks spell out Anna's name, and she is thrilled, thinking it's a special message for her. Just then, Kate and Henry surprise James by arriving at the park, looking happy together. Anna sees them from a distance and feels a wave of jealousy. Later that night, Anna texts James, asking about the firework with her name. He replies, explaining that it was just a thank you gesture for her help and also a way to say goodbye. He tells her he's going back to Shanghai tomorrow and that they won't be seeing each other again. After sending the message, he deletes their chat and her number, deciding to end things with her. At Miss Hill, there's a VIP fashion show for the new collection. Mrs. Wang arrives but gets upset when she can't find her seat. Emma quickly steps in, offering her a spot in the back where she claims will help Mrs. Wang shop easily. During the event, a woman accidentally walks into a glass wall. It was placed there today just for the fashion show, and her husband becomes angry. Emma immediately calls for help, even though Stacy, worried about the store's image, scolds her for it. Stacy thinks it might harm Miss Hill's reputation, but Emma explains that taking care of customers prevents bigger problems and shows other shoppers that the store truly cares. Emma even accompanies the injured woman to the hospital to make sure everything goes smoothly. By the end of the day, she returns to the store to update that it was all sorted. Amanda, the sales director from Hong Kong, has secretly been watching the event and notices how well Emma handles the problems. She praises Emma for her quick thinking and problem-solving skills. Stacy, feeling left out, tries to impress Amanda by commenting on her dress and knowledge of the designer, but Emma, having just attended that designer's exclusive fashion show thanks to Kevin, offers to help Amanda secure an invite for the next one. Emma gets close to Amanda, who shares an opportunity to relocate to Hong Kong. However, Emma might have to give up her senior seller rank if she takes the offer. Meanwhile, Kate receives troubling news from the financial manager. Mrs. Lee's tea factory has been losing money, and the organic tea certification has expired over 1 year. Kate, James, travel to the remote village where the tea factory is located, only to discover that Mrs. Lee tricked her into buying a failing factory. Kate feels devastated, realizing she was blinded by the glamour of the wealthy wives and didn't fully investigate before purchasing the factory. Kate tries to call Mrs. Lee, but Mrs. Lee denies any responsibility, claiming it was a fair deal and reminding Kate to pay the second installment on time. The financial manager explains that they have two choices: declare bankruptcy for the factory or pay the fee to renew the organic tea certification. Though it will be tough to sell the tea, after thinking it over all night, Kate and James decide to close the tea factory, seeing little potential in the industry. But the next day, the village leader and many locals visit them, showing Kate and James the tea plantation and explaining how the entire village relies on the factory for their livelihood. If the factory closes, the whole community will lose their jobs. Kate feels sorry for the villagers, and that night she tells James she's decided to keep the tea factory running. Meanwhile, Pete meets his brother Dave at a bar. After getting drunk, Pete accidentally reveals that he and Ginny are divorced. He opens up about how Ginny used to call him emotionally distant, but he says he did care, just didn't know how to show it. Dave takes Pete home, and Pete drunk talk about how regretful he is about the divorce with Ginny, which leaves her feeling sad. Emma tells Kevin about her chance to transfer to Hong Kong for work, but Kevin doesn't seem happy. At work, Stacy hears about Emma's connection with Amanda and starts making snide remarks, saying Emma only gets ahead because of her rich boyfriend and is blinded by love. Emma calmly replies that chasing a career can make people forget their own happiness. Stacy is taken aback. That evening, Emma goes to a business event with Kevin's friends. When she tries to join their conversation, Kevin subtly pushes her towards the other women, who are mostly mistresses. Feeling insulted, Emma walks out, and Kevin follows her. She tells him she's not just a pretty face and wants to grow and learn too. Back in Shanghai, Kate confronts Mrs. Lee and the other woman who helped scam her. She announces she'll keep the tea factory going and presents them with the first batch of tea. Kate hints that she won't end up like Mrs. Lee, who had to sell her factory in desperation. She warns them they'll pay for what they've done and tells them they're nothing without their husbands' names. Kate leaves, saying goodbye to the wealthy women group. Later, Emma runs into her ex-boyfriend, who was making coffee in a cafe. She had dumped him because he was broke. They talk like old friends, and Emma finds out he actually owns the cafe, which surprises her. He asks if she found a rich boyfriend like she wanted, and Emma admits that she did.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe and like for more videos like this. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and like for more videos like this.